The date was April 14th, 1865, a night for celebration. The air was filled with a sense of relief and joy as the nation had just emerged from the dark clouds of the Civil War. The place was Ford's Theatre in Washington, D.C. This historic venue was known for its grand performances and had become a cultural landmark in the city. The Civil War, after 4 long and grueling years, was finally over. The nation was beginning to heal from the deep wounds inflicted by the conflict. President Abraham Lincoln and his wife, Mary Todd Lincoln, sought a moment of respite. They had endured the immense pressures of leading a nation through war and now looked forward to a peaceful evening. They decided to attend a performance of Our American Cousin, a popular comedy that promised a night of entertainment and laughter. It was meant to be a night of laughter and joy. The audience was eager to escape the harsh realities of recent years, if only for a few hours. Little did they know it would be a night forever etched in American history, a night that would change the course of the nation, a night of tragedy and shock. The events that would unfold were unimaginable to those who had come seeking solace and entertainment. The theatre buzzed with excitement. The audience, dressed in their finest attire, chatted animatedly as they awaited the start of the play. The President and First Lady were in attendance. Their presence was a symbol of hope and renewal for the American people. Their presence brought a sense of victory and hope to the air. It was a moment of unity and celebration, a brief respite from the nation's troubles. The play began and laughter filled the theatre. The actors delivered their lines with perfect comedic timing and the audience responded with hearty laughter. But in the shadows, a sinister plot was unfolding. Unbeknownst to the joyous crowd, danger lurked nearby, threatening to shatter the evening's peace. John Wilkes Booth, a well-known actor and Confederate sympathizer, had devised a plan that would forever alter the course of history. He moved stealthily through the theatre, his mind set on a dark mission. Booth had meticulously prepared for this moment. He knew the layout of the theatre well and had chosen his timing carefully, waiting for the perfect opportunity to strike. The President and First Lady sat in the presidential box, enjoying the performance. They were unaware of the impending danger that was drawing ever closer. Booth approached the box with determination. He was driven by a misguided belief that his actions would avenge the South and change the nation's future. The theatre, once filled with laughter, would soon be plunged into chaos. The night that began with such promise would end in tragedy, leaving an indelible mark on American history. John Wilkes Booth, a renowned actor, lurked in the shadows. Handsome and charismatic, Booth harbored a dark secret. He was a Confederate sympathizer. The South's defeat filled him with rage. He blamed Lincoln for the Confederacy's demise. In his eyes, Lincoln was a tyrant, not a liberator. Booth vowed to avenge the South.
Booth's plan was simple, yet audacious. He would assassinate President Lincoln. He would strike a blow against the Union. He would throw the nation back into chaos. Booth's heart pounded with a mixture of fear and determination. He was about to change the course of history.
Booth was not alone in his plot. He was a charismatic actor, but his ambitions went far beyond the stage. He harbored a deep-seated resentment towards President Lincoln, whom he blamed for the South's suffering. He was part of a larger conspiracy. This was not a spur-of-the-moment decision, but a well-thought-out plan involving several key players. A group of disgruntled Confederate sympathizers rallied around him. These men were not just followers, they were co-conspirators who shared Booth's vision of a revived Confederacy. They shared Booth's hatred for Lincoln. To them, Lincoln was the embodiment of all their grievances, the man who had led the Union to victory and the South to ruin. They believed that by eliminating Lincoln and other high-ranking officials, they could revive the Confederacy. This was not just about revenge, it was about altering the course of history.
The conspirators planned meticulously. Every detail was scrutinized, every possible outcome considered. They knew the stakes were high. Their target list included Vice President Andrew Johnson. They believed that removing him would create chaos in the Union's leadership, and Secretary of State William Seward. Seward was a key figure in Lincoln's administration, and his removal was seen as crucial to their plans. They hoped to decapitate the Union leadership. By doing so, they aimed to throw the government into disarray and give the Confederacy a fighting chance. The fate of the nation hung precariously in the balance. This was a moment of extreme tension, where the future of the United States could have taken a very different path.
We believed that eliminating the key figures of the Union would give the Confederacy a chance to rise again. It was a desperate gamble, but we felt it was our only hope. We were driven by a shared vision of revenge and hope for a different future. Our actions were fueled by a mix of desperation, anger, and a longing for the South to reclaim its former glory. We knew the risks, but we were willing to take them for what we believed was a just cause.
As the play reached its climax, Booth made his move. The audience was engrossed in the performance, unaware of the impending tragedy that was about to unfold. The tension in the air was palpable, but no one could have predicted what was about to happen. He slipped into the presidential box unnoticed. The security was lax, and Booth, being a well-known actor, aroused no suspicion. He moved with a calculated precision, his mind set on his deadly mission. A single gunshot pierced the air. The sound was deafening, cutting through the dialogue on stage and the gasps of the audience. It was a moment that would be etched in history forever. Lincoln slumped forward in his chair. The bullet had found its mark, and the president's body went limp. The gravity of the situation began to dawn on those nearby. Mary Todd Lincoln screamed in horror. Her cry was one of pure anguish, a sound that resonated through the theatre, amplifying the chaos that was beginning to erupt. Panic erupted in the theatre. People began to shout and scramble for the exits, their faces masks of fear and confusion. The once orderly audience was now a frenzied mob.
Booth leapt from the box onto the stage. His dramatic exit was almost theatrical, as if he were still performing in a play. The audience, still in shock, could hardly believe what they were witnessing. He brandished a dagger and shouted, "Sic semper tyrannis," thus always to tyrants. His voice was filled with conviction, and his words echoed through the hall, adding to the surreal nature of the event. He then disappeared into the night. The darkness swallowed him, and he vanished as quickly as he had appeared, leaving behind a scene of utter devastation.
The nation reeled in shock and disbelief. News of the assassination spread like wildfire, and people everywhere struggled to comprehend the enormity of the loss. Their beloved president had been shot. The man who had led them through the Civil War, who had fought for unity and freedom, was now gone. It was a blow that struck at the very heart of the nation. The theatre was in chaos. People were screaming and running in all directions. The once grand venue had turned into a scene of bedlam, with overturned chairs and trampled programs littering the floor. It was a scene of absolute pandemonium. The assassination of President Lincoln was not just a tragic event. It was a moment that would change the course of history, leaving an indelible mark on the collective memory of the nation. Section 5. A Nation in Mourning. The following morning, Abraham Lincoln succumbed to his injuries. The news of his death spread like wildfire across the nation. Grief and despair gripped the country. Lincoln, the man who had guided the nation through its darkest hour, was gone. The nation mourned the loss of its leader. Black crape draped buildings from north to south. People wept openly in the streets. The country's future seemed uncertain and perilous. Lincoln's dream of a unified nation seemed to die with him. Section 6. The Legacy of an Assassination. John Wilkes Booth, the man who had set these events in motion, became a hunted fugitive. 12 days after the assassination, he was cornered and killed by Union soldiers. The nation breathed a collective sigh of relief. But the nation's wounds ran deep. Lincoln's assassination cast a long shadow over the era of Reconstruction. It left a void in leadership at a time when the nation desperately needed guidance.
The nation demanded justice for the slain president. The search for Booth and his co-conspirators intensified.
One by one, the conspirators were apprehended and brought to trial. The trial revealed the full scope of the plot. It showed the depths of hatred and anger that still divided the nation.
The trial captivated the nation. People followed every twist and turn. They wanted to understand how such a tragedy could have occurred.
The trial served as a reminder of the fragility of democracy and the enduring legacy of slavery. Section 8, Justice for the Fallen. In the end, 5 of the conspirators were found guilty and sentenced to death. They were hanged on July 7, 1865. The executions brought a sense of closure to a nation still in mourning. But the scars of Lincoln's assassination would not heal easily. The nation struggled to come to terms with the loss of its leader and the challenges of Reconstruction. The dream of a unified nation seemed as distant as ever.
Section 9, The Weight of Reconstruction. Lincoln's death had a profound impact on the Reconstruction era. Without his leadership and vision, the process of reintegrating the South into the Union proved even more difficult.
Radical Republicans, eager to punish the South, clashed with more moderate voices.
The South, devastated by war and struggling to adapt to a society without slavery, resisted federal efforts to impose change. The hope and optimism that had briefly followed the war gave way to frustration and disillusionment.
Section 10, Lincoln's enduring legacy. Despite the turmoil of Reconstruction, Lincoln's legacy lived on. His words, his actions, and his unwavering belief in the promise of America continued to inspire generations to come. He became a martyr for the cause of freedom and equality. Lincoln's assassination served as a stark reminder of the fragility of democracy. It highlighted the deep divisions that can exist within a nation, even in times of peace. But it also underscored the resilience of the American spirit and the enduring power of Lincoln's ideals.